today we're in the office again, so that can only mean one thing. We've disembarked Queen Mary 2 and it's the end of her Cunard voyage. Well, let's take this chance to talk about day 5 then, our last day aboard Queen Mary 2. We woke up and thought we'd go for breakfast in Britannia again. I actually made a point of asking for my breakfast to be served hot this morning. And it seemed to work because I got a hot bagel. Unfortunately, the kippers I had were cold when they arrived and just completely unappetizing, dry and not particularly great. Tracy had a fruit plate, I think it was, and hers was nice and enjoyable. After that, we popped up to the Corinthia Lounge for morning trivia. We had coffee and a donut there. Did the morning trivia where we didn't do well at all. I think we got like 10 out of 20. Once again, I ended up marking the quiz sheet for Cake by the Ocean, who ended up getting 19 out of 20 today. So well done to Cake by the Ocean. You guys know your trivia. When she collected the sheet, she did say there were some lucky guesses in there, but I think that's being modest. They know their stuff. After that, we were already on deck 7, and the outside decks were open today. The day before, they'd all been closed due to high winds, so we thought we'd go out, take the opportunity to get right to the bow of the ship and have a look out there. So that's what we did. We popped out, took a stroll along the promenade, out through the water doors and out onto the bow, where they've got the Commodore's cufflinks, which are actually spare propeller blades for the QM2 propulsion system, which is done using Azipods. So those blades there can be replaced if ever one gets damaged. Continued having a stroll around, and it's Cunard. There's nowhere else that I can imagine seeing this on the daily programme. But the next thing up that we wanted to go and have a look at was fencing in the nightclub.
Down just so Susan can get a feel for it. Step, step, and big lunge. That's it. Perfect. Okay.
They were actually teaching a foil fencing lesson there, with some of the passengers all geared up in the padded jackets and face masks with their foils. So as they were hidden behind the face masks, I did say, oh, does anyone mind if I just take a couple of photos and a bit of video and that? Because no one will be able to recognise you anyway. And they were cool with that. I popped into the theatre where they were showing some of the coronation up on the big screen. And then we went back to the room to record the vlog, deciding then we will try one more time, as it's our last day, to get into the Golden Lion for a pub lunch. That has been the busiest venue throughout the entire trip so far, and we were quite lucky. By that time, the bulk of the rush had died down. It was about 1 o'clock. There was no longer a queue of people waiting to jump on the first seat of anyone that moved. And we managed to grab a settee as someone just before us walked out. Sat down. Tracy had the battered cod, and I had pie of the day, which yesterday was a game pie. It was very good. Tracy really liked the fish and chips. But yes, it was a nice lunch. We sat there, we managed to catch the coronation parade returning to Buckingham Palace. But there was a lot of people watching in the pub, in the theatre, and because both those venues were so busy, they also showed it in illuminations. So there was 3 venues throughout the ship, 2 of them very large venues, where they were showing the coronation. After the pub, we went for a bit of a stroll, burnt off a few calories, then popped into Sir Samuel's, sat down to have a coffee, and they had a nice selection of cakes. So we thought it would be very rude not to have dessert there. Tracy went for a lemon meringue pie. I went for a chocolate fudge cake. And I got to be honest, it was absolutely lovely, but I had to admit defeat 2/3 of the way through because there was just so much of it. It was so big and so sweet, but very, very good. Okay, the afternoon. We wanted to see the planetarium and we hadn't managed to get there throughout the rest of the cruise because the timings just seemed to conflict with everything else. So carefully checked the daily programme and went along to the planetarium for a show there. So we stood around outside for about half an hour waiting because there was like big no entry signs up saying no entry, please wait whilst we prepare for the next show. Eventually some staff turned up and there was about 20 of us waiting by this point. And eventually they decided, yes, they'll start letting people in. At which point the staff said, oh, everyone with a reservation to this side and everyone who hasn't to that side. And suddenly there was a lot of us on the no reservation side because there was absolutely nothing at all in the programme saying you needed to make a reservation for this show or for the planetarium on this day. And all of us were in the same boat. We hadn't made a reservation and we're just standing around waiting forever. Several people complained that how were we supposed to know we were to make a reservation? There was nothing in the daily programme. And I mean, bless the lady at the door, she said it was a mistake that it wasn't mentioned in there, but tough. If you didn't know to make a reservation, you'd have to stand around and wait and hope it wasn't full. A few people decided to storm off at that, and there was 8 of us waiting at the end without a reservation, and luckily we all managed to get in because quite a few people didn't show up after having made a booking. We went in, watched a show in the planetarium, and I'll be honest, I was quite disappointed. The show itself was interesting, well narrated by Liam Neeson. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it was just a very old programme filmed 20 years ago in very low definition, or whether the projectors were out of focus and needed refocusing or something. It was very blurry. I mean, you started off, you had satellites with name tags on flying around the planet. You couldn't read a single name tag. There was a couple of times there was a shot of the ocean with the sun and some blob on the side. You couldn't tell whether it was supposed to be a cruise ship, an island or anything. It was just very low def or very out of focus and difficult to watch. So I'm glad we didn't have to pay money for it. It was an experience that could certainly be improved by a high def recording or focused projectors or more up-to-date equipment maybe. It's worth bearing in mind that this ship is 20 years old. They have done a refit of some public areas, but a lot of the ship is looking quite tired and you can see its age in a lot of places. After that, we popped up to the Commodore Club. Thankfully, today we didn't feel lightheaded when we walked in there. It was all good. We went in for what I call Alphabet Club, the LGBTQ plus meetup, and there was a large number of people there for it. It was the first time we had actually managed to catch it because earlier in the week we had gone up there for it and we had waited around the front of the bar and the other side. We didn't realise it was tucked away on the starboard side. This time we'd seen the sign earlier in the day, so we knew where to go. Met some lovely gents there who were Cunard aficionados. They've travelled with them many times. A lot of people know each other from a lot of other cruises in the past as well. And some of them have known each other for like 13 years plus of just bumping into each other on different cruise ships. But it was lovely to meet everyone there. Popped down to the buffet then for a quick bite and had a light dinner. I mean, we ate quite a bit on the ship, even though we weren't necessarily impressed with the food offerings. And it actually turned out that I managed to lose a kilo or 2 pounds whilst on the cruise. The theatre last night was a variety show of Swing, which was a performance presented by the Royal Court Theatre Company. They're dancers, entertainers and vocalists. And on the very first number, one of the dancers actually lost the heel of her shoe. And if you weren't in the first row like we were, you probably would not have noticed. She did not miss a beat. She did not miss a step, even though she had no heel on her shoe. Her feet were still poised brilliantly and everything. And the spin she did to pick it up as she walked off the stage was out of this world. So big props to the Royal Court Theatre Company and that lady. That was followed by the Little Opera Company presenting. I think it was about half a dozen different numbers from different operas. They did one, I'm going to have to look it up to find out what the name was, but everything they did was exceptional. This one they did, lady in a red dress, her voice was almost like a bird singing at times. And they finished their set with the national anthem, which had everyone in the theatre on their feet. And it was surprisingly busy. It was good. We enjoyed it. We didn't know what to expect going in for an opera company, but we did enjoy it. That was then 9 o'clock-ish. We decided that we were just going to have an early night then because we had to be up early for disembarkation. We returned to the room, put the last bits in the cases after getting out of our glad rags from the evening. Put the cases out, and literally within 5 minutes of putting the cases outside the door, they were gone and whisked off through the ship because my AirTag pinged to tell me that I had left my luggage behind. We had to be, our disembarkation group was group 2, which was 8:10. So got backpacks and off to the lift about 8:07. We only had to let one lift go because it was already full. Straight down to deck 2. Very smooth disembarkation. No trouble, no issues. Through the terminal, found the luggage. And we were standing at the car in the CPS parking with all the luggage ready to drive away by 8:30 in the morning. Quarter to 11, back home, here we are. But anyway, that was our last day on Queen Mary 2. Keep an eye out for the rest of the series where we'll have some videos talking about the additional cost or specialty dining options that we did and what our final thoughts are on Cunard, and will we travel with them again.
Remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
We will see you next time.